You are probably killing your garden if you aren't doing these 7 things that me and Tuck are going to show you today to beat the heat. Let's go! Let's start out with probably the most important and effective way to help your plants cope with the summer heat. Check out these cucumbers here. Look at all of them on the side here. Look how loaded these plants are, and more over here. And check out this cool variety down here. The striped painted serpent, I believe it's called. This section I have already harvested so many cucumbers from. Just a few days ago I came out here and got a whole entire basket full of cucumbers. I'm able to get consistent harvest from these cucumbers because what I'm doing is, come down here, I'm using a nice thick mulch. What I do is I come by, I apply a fertilizer at the base of my plants and then mix that into the top few inches of the soil. And after that, I'll apply a thick organic mulch. This time I use wood chips, but I also like using a diced leaf mulch. They both work fantastic. Using a mulch is so effective, especially at this time of the year, for a number of reasons. First, the mulch will help the soil retain moisture, which is obviously important when it's super hot out. Another one is it helps the soil remain cool and the roots remain cool when the sun is just beating down on the plants. And also, a mulch, let's grab some cucumbers while I talk about it a little more, will help the soil dry out slowly. If you don't have a mulch down, the soil can dry out really quickly and the soil can actually get completely dried out. That's not good, especially when you're growing cucumbers. We don't want our soil to completely dry out. When you have a mulch down, it'll slowly dry out, and then before it gets completely dry, you can come by with another watering. So that's really important because cucumbers, if the soil gets too dry, the plants can get stressed out. If the plants get stressed out, they form a compound known as cucurbitacin. This is what draws in the cucumber beetles. So by not having a mulch down and by allowing the plants to dry out too much, that could actually cause more pest issues than if we just have a mulch down and allow these plants to continue growing, continue thriving, and continue kicking out more and more cucumbers. It looks like Tuck wants a bite of a cucumber. He's out here working hard. We'll crack one of these off and see if he wants a snack. What do you think, Boyo? It's hot out here. We'll just let Tuck hang out here for a little while because it's probably getting too hot for him. But spam some hearts down low if you love seeing the little boss in the videos. This guy never quits. He's always working hard. That's why he's the king of the garden. Look at all the tomatoes on these plants. They're doing incredibly well in this section where I have all my tomatoes trellised up. In order for our plants to not only continue to grow and perform in the heat, but to thrive, we need to make sure that we're sticking to proper watering practices. One thing that's important is in this kind of heat, we want to make sure that we're watering our plants deeply. We don't just want to be doing surface watering. Tomatoes like a deep watering, and when you water your plants deep, that will encourage the roots to expand deep into the soil. If we only water at the surface, then the roots are going to want to remain at the surface of the soil. Also, when we're watering our plants, we want to only be watering at the base as I go along here. And we want to make sure that we're coming out and watering our plants at the right time. For instance, it's good to either water your plants in the early morning or in the evening. Just make sure you water at the base and don't get the leaves wet. The reason we want to water at these times is because we want our plants to be able to be fully hydrated and have a little time to soak up that water before the heat of the day comes. If we go out there and water our plants when they're already wilting, that's going to be a little too late. So make sure you're out there early watering your plants or either late, and follow these proper watering practices to allow your plants to thrive and kick out so many tomatoes. Look at these ones. This one's going to be an insane set. And then look at these over here, already ripe. Getting tomatoes early this year. Nothing like it. An additional simple and important way to help your plants manage the intense heat is to make sure that you're preventing and or removing any weeds in the garden. Right here, you'll see a weed coming up next to my tomatoes. We're just going to pull that out. Weeds will rob your soil of not only nutrients, but also water. Local and invasive weeds are better at taking in the moisture and will be unfair competition for your domesticated plants. You really want to go out and remove these weeds when they're young if you can't prevent them with a thick mulch. We really need to get them when they're young. If we allow the plants to get larger, then when we're pulling these weeds out, that could damage the roots of our plants that we're trying to get a harvest from, like our big, healthy tomatoes. When it comes down to it, don't let weeds get a foothold in your garden. They will grow exponentially and not only crowd out, but actually kill some of your plants. To help our crops cope with the heat, it's important to utilize microclimates. Shade can actually be a beneficial thing instead of a hindrance as long as we use it to our advantage. For instance, right here, I have an apple tree. You can see a Honeycrisp loaded with apples, so much fruit on it. And right below it, I have some strawberries growing. These strawberries performed beautifully. They kicked out a lot of strawberries, and they're doing better than a lot of my strawberries in different locations because the filtered sunlight through the apple tree and also some of the shade that comes from the hazelnut tree above you actually helps the tree out. So when you have intense sun like this, it's good to have some fruit trees around to give you some filtered shade so the plants don't get super, super hot and just scorched by the sun. Another thing that I'll do is to create my own version of a microclimate is I'll use a shade cloth. I especially like using a shade cloth at this time of the year to start some of my veggies, like even some of my fall crops. This kind of sun, it's too intense for some things like our brassicas. So by taking a shade cloth and putting it over top of my plants, that allows them to grow really well and to deal with this intense heat. I mean, look how bad I'm sweating just standing around out here. It's still pretty early in the morning, but man, it's hot. When growing beefsteak tomatoes up a stake like this, you can see these tomatoes are getting nice and large. It's a good idea to leave a few suckers at the center of your plant. This will provide some shade for those tomatoes as they start to ripen and will prevent sunburn on your tomatoes, known as sun scald. This is especially important in the south. So you'll notice I allow this plant to bush out a little bit to help protect some of those tomatoes from direct sunlight that can just burn some of those plants. I never have much of an issue with it, but it's really important in the south. Come over here. You'll notice in this area here where I'm trellising my tomatoes up strings, I have a lot of them all planted together. So if I wanted to, I could remove most of these suckers because the other plants are providing shade for the tomatoes, and it's not just the tomatoes themselves that need to provide some of the shade for the actual tomatoes forming. Look at all these tomatoes though, and coming out on the other side. Check out how much fruit is on over here, especially when you look from this side. It's going to be our biggest tomato harvest ever. A lot of them at the bottom are starting to ripen. These ones over here, look at the size of these beefsteaks, and look how many, or large tomatoes, look how many tomatoes are on this thing as we move up. Absolutely beautiful. And check this. It's going to be a crazy harvest, and a lot of them are ripe and ready to be eaten. Instead of fighting against the heat, it's easier to grow some plants that thrive in the heat, like this right here. This is red Malabar spinach, and it loves growing in the heat. This will provide us some greens, and it likes growing right now. Instead of trying to grow something like lettuce or something, which would be hard to grow in this really hot summer heat, grow something that loves the heat that can still provide you with greens. It can taste a little earthy and it's a little bit mucilaginous, but it's still great to have some fresh greens growing in the garden. A plant you don't really even have to take care of, it'll take care of itself. Right above our red Malabar spinach, notice all of these grapes growing along the fence line. Just work your way down. This plant is loaded. It's going to be potentially our biggest grape harvest ever. If you do want to try your hand at growing some lettuce at this time of the year, just make sure you grow some varieties that can deal with the heat. A variety like the slow bolt leaf lettuce is more tolerant of this heat than something like the winter marvel lettuce will be. The bronze mignonette lettuce is one of my favorite all-time lettuces that can deal with the heat as well, and it's just an overall great plant. So whatever kind of plant you're growing, make sure you grow one that can deal with the climatic conditions that you're dealing with right now. Let's see if we got some carrot down here, and if Tuck wants to try some carrots. These ones look like they're getting pretty large. Come in here, we'll see if we got some good carrots, and I bet Tuck shows up like usual. Not a bad looking carrot, decent size to it, nice color, and look who shows up right on time. The little boss loves his fresh carrots. We'll let him snack on this. I'm going to go around and show you some more stuff in the garden and just give you a look at how things are performing even through the heat. The blueberry bushes look great. We have a lot of ripe blueberries on them. You'll notice I made this little structure just with some bamboo. I made it into like a teepee and then covered it with an insect netting, and then I use these clamps that I use for building my hinged hoop house and just keep it on like that. I'll just pop this off, swing it back, and now the birds can't get to my plants because they'll come and steal these blueberries just as they're ripening. Let's grab a few of these here, and then a couple of these pink lemonade blueberries. These are some of my favorite all-time blueberries. Look at the color on these, and the flavor is incredible. A bunch of blueberries ready. There's nothing like eating them fresh right out of the garden. We'll throw these together, grab a snack of it. So good. This one's not for Tuck, this one's for me. So sweet and so good. Right here, we have a beach plum tree with some ripe beach plums on it. They have this beautiful yellow color and it almost turns to like a hint of orange as they ripen. Come over here, there's some really nice ones. Let's grab one of these. They almost remind me of like a big cherry, but it's so sweet and so delicious. We'll get a taste of one. Let's get a taste. So dang good. Look at the color of that fruit. Again, it's like a big cherry and it tastes fantastic. In the back corner of the garden, we have even more food growing. A young apple tree that has a bunch of apples on it. We've got some echinacea down here looking beautiful. The bees have been really working hard on this one. Monster tomatoes. More tomatoes over here. As we back up, I call this tomato alley. We've got tomatoes growing on both sides of me. We've got apple trees in the center. More tomatoes over here, and then we've got blueberries in between some of our trees. So much food in such a small amount of space. Some unique varieties like the atomic grape over here. Now the plant doesn't look super healthy, but it seems to kind of always be wilting. One reason is it's so dang hot back here. This is a microclimate where it's just very hot because it's in a corner, it doesn't get much of a breeze, and then there's two white fences on either side of me. Notice in here, we've got some potatoes growing. These are growing in a bit of the filtered shade from the cherry tree right above us, and they really like this location. Last year I harvested so many potatoes from just this 1 foot square bed, the width. Swing over to the zucchini in the back. Zucchini is another plant that loves the hot weather. I'm growing them vertically, and you'll notice how tall the plants are getting. It's helping me save space, and we still have some zucchini right here that's ready to be picked. That's the ideal size I like grabbing my zucchini. And then the blackberries are really starting to ripen. These things have an incredible amount of fruit on them. Some really nice looking blackberries here too. Check out all the fruit as we pan down. So much food. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you got something out of it. Me and Tuck hope that we shared some tips or techniques or tricks for you to help beat the heat and still allow your garden to thrive and kick out a lot of food. At this time of the year, if you don't stay on top of some of the tips that I share with you, then a few weeks from now, your garden will start to look poor, and that can be demoralizing sometimes. So make sure you stay on top of protecting your garden from the heat. This way you can get consistent harvests. It's a little hot for this guy out here. We're gonna have to head inside. Me and Tuck wanted to send a thank you to one of our new channel members, Tanya Johnson. Thanks for being a part of Team Grow. Thanks for having your hand in everything we're doing out here. Tuck and James will be back at you again real soon. We out.